Now, for a look at the day's top business news with Brian Quinn. Good evening, Brian.
Hi, Delano.
You're starting out in Lebanon, where the economic crisis is threatening to get even worse as the government runs out of cash.
Yeah, that's right, Delano. As we know, Lebanon, of course, is in the midst of a historic economic crisis. The country defaulted on its sovereign debt for the first time ever back in March. For years, the Lebanese central bank has been on a borrowing spree at high interest rates, sending the local currency into hyperinflation. That debt has also depleted the country's foreign currency reserves, threatening the government's ability to continue crucial subsidies for basic goods like fuel, wheat, and medicine. Outgoing Prime Minister Hassan Diab spoke out against any move to end those subsidies on Friday, saying it would result in, quote, a social explosion. He did, however, admit that the aid would have to be retargeted at the most needy to avoid fiscal collapse. Many ordinary Lebanese people have been driven into poverty even before the August 4th explosion that devastated the capital, Beirut. Fears of subsidies coming to an end are now driving those who can to stockpile. Take a listen.
The crisis has gotten worse over the past 2 months. Medications are out of stock. Suppliers are limiting the amount of medications pharmacies can receive. People are now stocking up at home because they're afraid of a shortage or higher prices. They think it's better to buy now before prices go up even more.
Let's take a look at today's trading action now. Wall Street rallying Friday as negotiations between the White House and congressional Democrats on a new coronavirus stimulus package appear to be making some progress. Donald Trump raising the administration's offer from $1.6 to $1.8 trillion, tweeting at negotiators to go big and calling into a radio host Rush Limbaugh to talk up a bigger game. The Dow up 0.4%, the S&P 500 up around 0.75%, the NASDAQ up over 1.1% so far. European indexes finished the day higher on those same U.S. stimulus hopes. London's FTSE 100 up around 0.2%, despite disappointing economic news out of the UK. The CAC 40 here in Paris up around 0.7%. The Frankfurt DAX just barely clearing the flat line amid declines in the auto sector on Friday. Well, here in France, one sector that has so far been spared the worst economic fallout from the coronavirus is now facing a new challenge. Toy sales have boomed during the pandemic, with kids increasingly stuck at home, but manufacturers have also had to change their production routines over health concerns. It's now leading to fears of a toy shortage with the winter holiday season rapidly approaching. Clara Rush takes a look at the state of play.
Christmas is more than 2 months away, but some toys, from Beanie Babies to stuffed animals to board games, are already hard to find in France.
J'ai fait le tour de Paris pour Superman, et là je suis en train de chercher Batman. J'espère trouver la bonne taille.
Since lockdown was lifted in May, toy sales in France have soared by 15% compared to the same period last year. And by mid-August, the sector had recovered 80% of its lockdown losses, according to consulting and analytics firm NPD. Sales have jumped so high that some products are nearly out of stock, concerning some retailers.
Ce produit-là, on sait que c'est les dernières pièces qui restent et il sera approvisionné à partir du mois de novembre. Effectivement, il y a une demande un peu plus importante que la normale, ce qui explique que peut-être les unités fabriquées n'étaient peut-être pas suffisantes.
Growing demand, dwindling supply, and coronavirus restrictions. All problems preventing this factory in the Paris region, which specializes in producing arts and crafts, from ramping up production.
Ici, d'habitude, on est beaucoup plus nombreux, ce qui nous permet de produire plus rapidement. Mais avec notre protocole sanitaire, on a éloigné le personnel.
Production delays in China are also disrupting supply chains.
C'est lié au délai d'acheminement qu'il peut y avoir depuis l'Asie, donc pour les produits qui sont fabriqués là-bas. Et comme vous le savez, sur le marché du jouet, c'est aussi une part non négligeable.
French retailers hoping to maintain their stock until the holidays, a period that accounts for nearly half of yearly toy sales.
Time for some more of the day's top business headlines we're following for you at this hour. The Trump administration is imposing new tariffs on $2 billion worth of aluminum imports. 18 countries are affected, including Germany, Spain, and Brazil. The rate on German metal topping 350%. Washington says the tariffs are in response to sheet aluminum being sold at below cost or being helped by unfair subsidies. Euronext is buying Milan Stock Exchange operator Borsa Italiana from the London Stock Exchange. The 4.3 billion euro cash deal represents a major expansion for the operator of the Paris Stock Exchange. Euronext plans to issue 1.8 billion euros in debt and raise 2.4 billion in new equity to fund the purchase. And a plan to tax digital multinationals in the countries where they do business instead of where they register subsidiaries is gathering steam. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has been working on a proposal that they say would boost national tax revenues by some $100 billion annually. Germany's finance minister said Friday that 137 countries have agreed on the current blueprint, which will be taken up by finance ministers of the G20 next week. On to Indonesia next, where a new labor law has sparked massive street protests this week. The bill is meant to create more jobs, but opponents say it undermines workers' rights and weakens environmental protections. Camille Nedelec reports.
More jobs is usually a crowd pleaser. But for these protesters in Indonesia, the new job creation law is a bitter pill to swallow. It would reduce severance pay, allow foreign workers to do manual labour, increase outsourcing and convert monthly salaries into hourly rates.
Ini sangat merugikan rakyat Indonesia. Apalagi anggota dewan kita jelas-jelas mengkhianati rakyatnya sendiri.
Other unpopular changes are to environmental protections. The law merges business permits with environmental permits, which until now required companies to assess the environmental impact of their activities. And the minimum 30% of land reserved for forest on each of Indonesia's islands has been scrapped. Indonesia's rainforests are some of the biggest in the world and are home to the critically endangered orangutan. But its habitat is under threat, as Indonesia is also rich in natural resources such as coal, oil and gas and minerals. Vast swathes of forest have been converted into palm oil plantations. A growing number of local leaders have come out against the new legislation.
Yesterday I also met with the protesters and we had brief discussions with them, and I told them that we have listened to your voice and I will convey the message.
As Jakarta cleans up its streets, the KSPI Labour Group has chosen the next battleground. It plans to challenge the job creation law in the country's constitutional court.
And finally, for business, Pixar's upcoming animation film titled Soul will go straight to streaming rather than to cinemas. The movie will premiere Christmas Day on Disney+. Unlike the live-action remake of Mulan, which was released last month for nearly $30 pay-per-view, Soul will be available to subscribers without further charge. It's the latest Hollywood film to bypass the cinema or be facing delays as the movie industry continues to suffer from the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Disney itself has also been hit hard. It recently announced the layoffs of some 28,000 workers, mostly at its theme parks. I guess that's good news if you have Disney+. Pixar films are usually good. I don't know, about $30 to rent Mulan. When I was a kid in my day, Delano, $2. Blockbuster Video. We were happy.
But this the coronavirus impacting everything. Bars shut. You can't go to the cinema. Well, you can go to the cinema, but just wear a mask on.
Do you want to?
I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to watch Disney. Thank you very much for that, Brian.
My pleasure.
Brian Quinn there with today's business news. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. More coming up.